My name is Brendan. I'm an alcoholic. How you guys doing? Good? All right. Hope you guys don't mind. I think I'm going to take my coat off. I'm a little hot. And, yeah. Got to get a little music? All right. I tend to move around a bit, a little hyperactive, so wearing, in Seattle, that's basically all we have for clothing is wool. So coming down here to the desert's a little different. I would like to thank the group for inviting me to speak. It is a privilege. I didn't earn the right to be here, for sure, and you'll become very aware of that as we move on. But I'd also like to thank my host, Pete. We have a lot of history, and thank you. You've been a great host. Appreciate it. And met a lot of cool people from Utah up at the conference. If you didn't go, you should definitely go. I really can't say enough how much that conference back where I'm from has really helped Alcoholics Anonymous in our primary message, and as you heard. So I'll get started. I already told you my name. My home group is Drunks R Us North group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Meets on Friday nights at 8 p.m. in Shoreline, Washington, just north of Seattle. Starts at 8 p.m. And if you want directions, you call. I'll give you my info. But you can, if you're ever up there, you can call Pete, and he has my info. And my sponsor's name is Kenny Down. I think he was down here speaking with you guys before. Great man. And he has a sponsor. And he definitely has gone through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I come from a long, well, I don't say lineage because it just sounds too elitist, but I do come from a spiritual heritage in Alcoholics Anonymous, where much like everybody here, where we just go through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous one page at a time, and miraculously we do exactly what it says. It's a novel concept, and it was to me. So to qualify myself, we should probably talk a little bit about that. I grew up in a town called Rebna, Washington, and I grew up in a really tight Irish Catholic family that does not make me alcoholic, although it did not help matters. Caused complications, and as I like to say, just made for more drinking. And if you know anything about that, I had 4 brothers. We come from a fist-fighting family, and there's a lot. See, that's the crazy thing is, a lot of love, and in that household. But at the same time, there was a lot of violence, a lot of craziness and insanity. And my brothers used to chase each other around, fist fights, throwing, I hucked butcher knives at my brothers. They hucked them back, and here, catch, and that happened a couple times, and then they look at you like, dude, and you're just like, you're scared you're about to hit them in the head, and I'm just like, yeah, I meant to do that, because you want to scare them, to think that you're crazier than they are. And we also play this game. We run around the house, and it was, first one of the fire poker wins. I don't know if you guys ever played that lovely family game. It's a great one. You got to play it, though. There's a couple rules. It has to be made out of solid iron, steel. Can't be this wimpy Walmart stuff, it like bends over their head, like cartoon. It has to be like solid, like it does some damage, with the hook. And because that way when they come around the corner and you got that, and although you're about 6 years younger, it's suddenly an even playing field, really quick. You're just, swinging away like, I will kill you, no, it's over, and until, you get tired and then they grab it from you and then... Yep. God love those days. One of my other favorite games was they put me in a suitcase and roll me down the stairs. I'm a real big guy, as you can tell, so that was fun. I like being carried around, and I swear to God, it was kind of fun, and until they'd roll me down, my brother James one day said, let's put a beanbag at the bottom of the stairs, and I'm thinking, soft landing, and he actually continues and says, that way it doesn't keep rolling and make a hole in the wall, and I'm like, great, and more worried about the plaster than my head. Nice. So, there's a lot of insanity, in that house. And my dad was a drinker. My dad was an attorney in town, and he became city attorney. He started, Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, president of that, planting trees at City Hall, all that stuff. And we started a parish there in the town, and we were really involved and very visible. And my dad, though, he was a great man. He really is. And I'll get into that more because, we do have a good relationship today, and that's because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I assure you. Because he was a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like you hear about in that book. He would start drinking when he came home, and it was, his scotch and his tumblers and these, like Egyptian gold-plated things on there. I still remember that and chinkering it around. And Dad would change. He would take that alcohol, and something would come over him, and we would go into hiding. And Mom, it was, like I said, it was violent. Mom, when I was 5, just one scene I'll give you is, I woke up to my dad, screaming at my mom and carrying her by the end of her hair and dragging her down the hallway like a caveman, and my mom holding on for dear life. And, going in that bathroom and hearing stuff run around and sitting there wondering, oh, my God, what's going to happen? It's a little bit too much for somebody. So I just buried my head in the pillow and cried, And then the next morning I got up, Mom was making bacon and eggs, and Dad had the suit and the briefcase, and love you, honey. Bye, have a good day. And I'm like, what? That's confusing, and that does not make me an alcoholic. But I need to let you know some of my history because I know that some people come from that kind of background. And even if you don't, I just want you to know that no matter what background you come from, since 1991 when I first got sober and the 16 and a half years I've been in this deal, I have seen an unbelievable number of miracles of people coming from, as it says, the scrap heap of life. Elevated to a life, much better than they could have ever known. So no matter how far down the scale I went, I realized that I can get better too. So I want you to know if you do come from that, you can quit drinking for good and ever. But more than that, more than just, stopping drinking, you can have a life, a real life, where not filled with the pain and the memories of that. Because that stuff doesn't, although it's part of my story, I don't suffer from my past anymore. It's actually become one of my greatest assets. And I use it to go fishing in Alcoholics Anonymous, looking for that face of hopelessness. So, anyway, so I got this crazy household, and I'm just out of my mind, and I'm really out of my mind, and I find drinking. I drank a little bit, like 6th grade. I think I drank a King Budweiser beer, and I drank it on the playground, a Coca-Cola can, and whatever. We got a little buzz, and we drank some beer, But the real time I really drank alcohol, the first time that I really can say that I really did the job right, was I stole a bottle of McNaughton whiskey. And I'm sure this is classic for alcoholics, but, they were, it was Mike and his mom and me over at the house, and she went shopping, she put it up on the shelf. She went into the bedroom, he had to go to the bathroom, I grabbed the bottle, ran across the street, hit it in some bushes, ran back in, sat down at the kitchen table like nothing had happened. And then they came out, and his mom's like, oh, I swear I just brought that bottle in. Where did you see the bottle? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And this is the part you relate to. Here, let me help you look for it. Oh, yeah. You know it, don't you? Yeah. So I'm helping them look for the bottle of 5th of McNaughton whiskey, and we can't find it anywhere. And, so I go back home, and several months later, I'm with that guy, Mike, and a couple other guys. We're behind a house, and, the summer after 6th grade, we're about to go into 7th grade, big time. And, junior high, all right, and we pull out these glasses, and I start drinking. And I'm the guinea pig because they're all looking at me. I'm the guy that's willing to try. And I'm stepping up for the team. And so I start drinking, and I'm drinking nothing. More, drink nothing. I think it's supposed to be instant, because it looked like it was instant in my dad's eyes. So I'm thinking this is going to be instant. And nothing's happening. And I drink 3/4 a bottle of McNaughton whiskey, my first time. And I'm like, this stuff sucks. Nothing happened, and I get up, and they're like, really nothing? I'm like, no, man, I don't get it. And I stood up, and I might drink this fast. And should be a sign when you've never drank before, and you're drinking like straight, McNaughton whiskey, and you're not even phasing, you're just like, like water, And I step up on the next deck level, and it was like, oh. And I guess apparently I said something happening now, and I have very, very brief recollections of that night. I remember being on the porch. Apparently I was there for an hour. I thought it was like 5 minutes. I was crying because I couldn't tie my shoes. You guys get those emotional drunks? I can't tie my shoes. And you're just like, oh, 12 hours of this crap, like, let's just give him more so he passes out, and but that's my problem. I mean, I didn't really ever pass out, I drank, you guys get that? You drink, you're more awake, you're just like, woo, 2 days, here we go, and who knows where we're going, what towns we get to visit, good times. So, I go on like this, and I guess apparently I was falling down, hitting my head on cars and the pavement, and they were getting concerned of brain injury, and not like I was feeling it, and so Mike, being a good man, even though he looked at me and said, "You did steal that bottle," which, yeah, I was like, yeah, and whoops, forgot about that one. See, it's hard to keep that stuff straight, isn't it? I stole from him, make sure not to bring it out when he's around. Forgot. Okay, so, so he goes, and he's a nice guy, so he goes and steals a motorcycle helmet, but all they have is an extra large one, so I get this extra large motorcycle helmet on my head. Yeah, so if you can imagine, I'm 7th grade, down here, and, like I'm a big guy already, but, I got this giant motorcycle helmet on my head, and I'm falling left and right and hitting my head more and more, I mean, it's like weeble wobbles, those things. So if the helmet tips, I go wherever it goes, and it's just like gravity time, we're walking down the sidewalk, and I'm getting real conked, and what's cool is like those masks come down, and I can hear my own voice, which is a great thing for a drunk, and I'm like, oh, Luke, use the force, and they're like, shh, and I'm popping it up, what, they're just like, dude, so they're taking me over to this girl's house because her dad's an alcoholic, and he'll know what to do at 3 a.m., that's a good idea. Hey, Mr. Munoz, hey, our buddy's drunk, we know you're a drunk, what do we do, that's freaking moron, it's like, yeah, that's a good one. So it really was John's excuse just to go see Heather, who was really beautiful, and so I get the drunk dump. You guys probably know what that is, where you got your buddy and you don't want to get commingled with the wife or fiance or girlfriend or family, and you don't want to be involved at all when you're dropping them off. You're like, bye, good luck, buddy, and put him on the lawn and let him find him in the morning for all you care. It's like, it's still 20, he'll be good for a couple hours, and so they drop me in the back window, and they drop me off. Mike, my good buddy, who I stole a McDonald's whiskey from his mom, was good enough he took care of me that whole night, even though I ripped him off. And, my brother Brian comes out and goes, "You're drunk," because I guess I was really noisy. I wasn't quiet, apparently, and so I bent over backwards over the couch like a gymnast, pulled up forward, and I guess apparently there was a girl at my school named Buffy. That's no lie. Her name was really Buffy, and if she ever hears this, I'm very sorry. But she was beautiful, beautiful blonde girl at my school, and I guess I tried to grope my brother and make a pass at him and said, "Buffy," and my brother was not having that one, and my mom came down, got me, went upstairs. There's my dad, and it went so well with my brother, I guess apparently I tried to grope my dad and make a pass at him and said, "Buffy." And, I hate to say it, but she heard about that story later. My buddies told her, oh, that was humiliation on the ski bus, I'll tell you, coming down. I heard that you, and I'm like, oh, God, yeah, sorry about that. But, that was my first night drinking, and nothing really happened, stuff happened, but as far as I'm concerned, I didn't go to jail, I didn't wake up married, like you hear some people talk about. You're like, wow, that's a good one, and, I didn't wake up in Detroit, we used to have some friends actually thought it was funny. They used to get their money together, and the drunk guy, back in the day, I guess you could put them on the planes, they wouldn't care, and tell them they were going to a wedding. He's going to a wedding, he's got to get on. Oh, okay. Give him a one-way ticket to wherever, Bogota, Colombia, welcome, God, if I ever, I hope I never drink again, but I swear to God, if I ever do, I am going to do that one, man. I'm sending you to, Moscow one way, God, that'd be a good one. That's some good revenge, isn't it? Yeah, they wake up, no wallet, nothing, where am I? I don't even speak the language here. It sucks. So anyways, what ends up happening is that, that's my first drunk, it's like, whatever, and I want more of that, and it's funny and it's fun, and, we're all about that. But you know what, as you guys know, this thing progresses. And, I steal my first keg when I'm 14 from the battalion fire chief up the street. And I'm 14 and I own a keg. Good times. You are Mr. Popular at 14 with a keg. I mean, everyone's like, everyone knows your name. It's like Norm. It's like Brendan. Yeah, and that's what we're doing. And, I start doing, there are some drugs in my story, but I just want to make clear that, I am an alcoholic, and I am here to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous. But, I started doing other things around that time, and I'd wake up and I'd do those things so I could manage my day. And what I found, and I hope if you're here and you're new, that you answer that question. Are you an alcoholic of the hopeless variety described in this book? That. And then if you have other things in your life, I hope you answer that separately, completely separately, because they're not the same. You can take my mom and give her as much alcohol as you want and jam it down her throat, and I guarantee you're not going to make an alcoholic out of her. In fact, after a couple glasses of wine, my mom has this expression of, she gets all giddy and she gets all laughing, goes, "Oh, I'm starting to feel it, I better stop." What's up with that? It's like, yeah, more, man. So, I had to answer that question for myself, and, I ended up, through this drinking career, it was just ridiculous. But just fast forward, I was going to, my parents were sending me to counselors, and in total, I went to 4 different counselors and a psychotherapist. And they provided drugs for me and took me off drugs. They gave me a Minnesota test, I think, for 15 minutes. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but it's, long bubble thing where they figure out what's really wrong with you. And apparently I was like manic depressive, bipolar, and some blah, 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 blah other stuff that was psychotic, and then sent me on my way. And good times. But, I wound up drinking pretty much at one point, we started drinking every day. I needed alcohol to get through. I'd wake up, and it was like, I literally, I remember this one, the sobering moment I remember. I was sitting in the high school vice principal's office or whatever, and she's looking across from me, and she says, Brendan, and she's with the sober teacher, by the way. I don't know if you guys have those down here, but we started these sober groups in high schools, and our feeble attempt, and she's in there and glaring at me, and I'd just gotten loaded, really bad, and I'm trying to look as sober as I can, where you're like, and your eyes are like this, and you're like, you're like, oh my God, I think I'm half-eyed right now, I'm Chinese, oh my God, open my eyes, and she looks at me and she says, Brendan, you have not been in classes. In this class here for it was like 60 days, and this one like 80 days. And it's funny, it's like you think I would have noticed, but I'm just looking at her going, what? Like, I'm surprised. I'm shocked. I'm like, no way, man, I swear I've been here every day. And they're like, no. And what the thing was that I was there every day, but not in class. See, I'd show up, I'd be loaded, and I couldn't even make it an hour period without sneaking into the bathroom. So I'd go in before every class, and they give you just enough time between the bell rings to get to your next class, sit down. But I'm like running to the bathroom, getting loaded, and as you guys know, it's not like, I'm just going to have a little, and it's like, it's on, and then, however long you come out later, and then the next class, then I run to the bathroom, I try to do the next thing, and it's like, and then finally at lunch, we may never come back, and that's kind of what was going on, and my brother Brian went to treatment one day. And, my mom came home from that treatment center, and something changed completely. My mom went away, and they returned an Al-Anon Nazi. And, it was like, it was on. And I just want to make clear, if there's any Al-Anons here tonight, I am so grateful for Al-Anon, really, because Alcoholics Anonymous may have saved my life, but Al-Anon was the one that got me there. It really was. I have the utmost respect for that program. And my mom starts getting after me and realizing that I'm not closing the Redmond pool every night, and that's I'm not swimming in chlorine is not really actually the cause of the red eyes. And she starts figuring to put a lot of stuff together, and there's insanity in my house. My brother's trying to be sober. He's in treatment, and I'm out of my mind. And I'm not a big guy, but I don't know if you guys relate, but I was a rageaholic too. And you know what that is that, I had that thing inside me that just, like I was supposed to be here, this alive thing, right? But, I just couldn't see myself surviving in this world. I just couldn't see myself as necessary. I'm just like, I am the most unnecessary being on the planet. And I'm going to bed at night, and I'm praying to God. I'm just like, please, just don't let me wake up. I mean, honestly, I'm begging God. I'm like, if you just take me off this planet right now, if you just take Brendan out, and I wake up in the morning, take my memory out of it. I haven't done anything. I mean, there's no textbook that's going to have to be edited, for, Brendan Daly of Redmond, did this. It was like, I did nothing. I contributed nothing to this world. And so I thought, please, just please. God obviously didn't answer that prayer. He chose not to take me out. And I begged for that, and hold on, I get some water. I always say water. I used to say drink. But then you hear me gulping, and it always made people nervous. So, anyways, I go to my counseling appointments, and I'm looking at my mom, and she's sitting there, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with Brendan. And I'm looking at her, telling her, to her eyes, to her face, I've become just an awful existence of a being, and I'm in so much pain. The only way I can feel any better, I try to lash out and make you feel worse. And so I tell my mom, when you die, I'm not going to your funeral. And when you die and you're buried, I'm going to dig you up. I'm going to take the gold out of your teeth, and I'm going to sell it for drugs. And, that's not such a nice comment, And my mom sat there and cried in that counseling session. And she thought, what is wrong with you, And I mean, I just did it just to pretty much just for shock value and just to really hurt her, Because I can't stand who I am and who I've become. I can't stand being here. And the worst thing about that is Mom's just giving me unconditional love. She's just loving me, and I freaking hate it. I hate it. We're going to counseling. I love you. Oh, God. Please just kill me now, And, I used to pray for a Mack truck to hit me because then at least everyone would feel sorry because it was an accident. And, of course, we'd have a big parade behind my casket. And, in reality, it would have been pedestrian, did not watch where he was going, was hit, and it would all be about public safety in the crosswalk. It would have nothing to do with Brendan. Because, really, that's it, And so what ends up happening is that, I'm going to these things, nothing's working, and I get in this, like I said, I'm not proud of this, but, I used to get in these fights, and I started to get this reputation. Crazy Psycho Norman is what they used to call me. Used to. Some people still do. But what happened was that I hit this guy so bad. I broke 3 of his teeth, his jaw, and it was one punch and it was over. And I walked away, and nothing happened that day. He didn't do anything to me except for bug me. And that was the thing. You just never knew what was going to set me off. I was literally just. I was crazy. Just one wrong thing, and it was like an eruption. It was crazy. And I've been trained since I was born by my brothers with, knives and, fire pokers and all that. So, it's like you get hit and it's like, please, I have 4 Irish brothers who beat the crap out of me since I was born. What do you got? Ooh, and, ooh, you're going to hit me a couple times. Wow. And, so that just stuff never worked out too well though. And, I was asked, let me rephrase that. I was not asked. I was told that I would not be attending that school ever again. And I was supposed to go into that school the next year. I was summer school. Anyone do summer school? Yeah, the makeup session. God, that sucker, what? And, so we're doing that. And, my dad tells me, because he's an attorney, he's like, you got to turn yourself in. We're getting reports that they're going to come for you. And I went, oh, okay. So off we go, and we turn myself in. And my dad tells me that, if we go to treatment, it might help. And my dad pays for my first treatment center, inpatient. And I'd already tried outpatient at this time, and all the counselors and that, and with no success. And, well, before I tell that, I just got to tell one story. Right before that, I was sober about 5 days before a year, because like I said, my mom was an Al-Anon Nazi, and they made me go to AA meetings, and they were trying to save me, but I wasn't ready. And that's another thing. No one can make you get sober. It's like when you're ready, you're ready. When you're utterly destroyed completely from the inside, then, and only then, maybe you'll be able to connect with somebody and have a chance here, And but I had 5 days for a year, and I went home one day without even thinking, and I mean not a thought in my head no fight whatsoever, as it says about another guy in there. And I went home, and I went inside, and I remember seeing a bottle behind the battery can, the extra battery can in the kitchen. And my mom had kicked my dad out by now. They were getting divorced, and my mom had created a sober household. And I started taking pulls off this cooking wine. And it was like, if you've been sober for any period of time with no solution, it's like, man, when you start taking that drink when you're going back out, it's like, thank God. Why did I wait so long, you know? And I really mean that, you know, because without a solution, you know, sobriety, well, let me say this, separation from alcohol, not sobriety. Separation from alcohol is the worst because it's what works for me. You know, without that solution, I get worse in sobriety, never better, just like when I'm drinking. It's the same thing. You know, so I take this off, and it tastes like soy sauce, tastes like junk, and I'm like, this is disgusting, you know, and I call my buddy, he brings down 8 beers, and we proceed to drink those, because he tastes it, and he thinks it tastes like crap, but I've drank like half this bottle by the time, he's 2 houses up, you know, and I called him when I took my first sip. By the time I got down, I was chugging half the bottle, and I mean, I just need to get it on, you know, and I could not stand being who I was in my skin. I just needed out. I just could not handle the pain anymore, you know, it was too great. And what ended up happening is I remember talking at this place once, this, I don't know, district thing, gratitude banquet thing, and my mom came up afterwards, and she said, honey, I did get rid of all the alcohol. She said at Costco, those big things, I had to break it down to smaller things, so I used that for the soy sauce. And I thought, oh my God, man, I chugged half a bottle of soy sauce, you know, to get it on. So, yeah, don't ask me out for teriyaki, please. No thanks. And, yeah, I'm thirsty, yeah. And what ends up happening is, you know, I realize, oh, my God, you know, that's something, you know. And then I go to treatment, and I go to wilderness survival, and that's where they take you out in the desert, strip you down, give you a buck knife for 21 days, and good luck, you know. And, you know, I mean, Lord of the Flies, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you're not really becoming friends out there, you know. And, you know, so I'm with this group of guys, and an amazing experience, I'll tell you. You know, it really did change my life, but not enough to make me sober. It was not the solution for my alcoholism. And, you know, I was out there, and I ate a mouse, and took the mouse skin and put it in a medicine pouch of the rattlesnake vertebrae, and I came back, and then we started going to meetings, and then I had this thing, and if you can imagine, this awesome, long mullet hair, you know, and, yeah, and, God, what a great cut. But, you know, I'm at these meetings, and they're like, you know, now I've arrived, now I'm a personality. And they're like, let's hear from Rat Boy. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm Rat Boy, you know. And, you know, I'm sharing about, you know, and, I'm talking like this. I'm like, yeah, I went to the desert, and I found God. It was unbelievable. You know, and I'm talking really soft-spoken, because that's how spiritual people talk, you know. And we're just real spiritual, you know, and, you know, just that voice, you know, that soothing voice, you know, and thanks, Pete. And, you know, so I'm Rat Boy in the meetings, and, you know, those great meetings in the beginning where I'm going to, we're talking about that, where the meetings I was going to, because I need a place to feel safe and okay, and I come from this craziness, and there's stuff going on in my head. So I went to meetings where it was louder out here than it was in my head. You guys ever do that? You know, it's just, I just have so much crap in here. I need to go a place that's just filled with insanity, so I felt normal, you know, and I'm the Rat Boy, you know, and it's great. So, you know, I stole 10 pounds of sugar from that meeting, and I went back to treatment on that night, you know, and because they were taking me to an outside meeting, and I was putting it in cellophane packets and selling it, distributing it throughout the treatment center, and I got caught for that one, and so then they were singing Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me every time I walked in a room. And again, you know what? It's funny, and you know what? And they're all like, "Yay, Brendan!" You know, and it's like, you know, and that's danger to me, you know, because what it's doing, it's allowing me to be insincere about what's really going on. It's allowing me to just kind of play the game, live or die, whatever, you know, and you know, so I get out of that deal, and literally about, I don't know, I think I was sober total 3 months. So I had 56 days when I got out, 35 in, 21 wilderness, 56 days, and I'm at my dad's apartment, and I think it's around Christmas time, and he's got these Christmas bottles wrapped up, somebody giving them, and that urge comes on, and there's no, I think I'll call, you know, somebody in AA, you know, that doesn't happen to me. My story is that I don't call you guys, man. It's like, why would I do that? You're going to tell me not to drink and go to a meeting. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea, and so I get the drink on, and it's like I don't think about that, I don't have that, mental defense that's, that was a bad idea, remember that story? That was bad, it's like, no, who cares, I need something to drink now, and that's all I think about, is drink, in the back of my head, constantly droning, like this drum, just drink, 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 and it's like, I'm the guy who drinks no matter what. You can tell me all the horror stories. I can do all the horror stories myself in my own life, and that does not matter. I will drink no matter what. I am that guy. So don't tell me go to meetings and don't drink in between. It doesn't work. Not for this alcoholic. I'll go to meetings and leave and drink. You ever seen those guys? It's like, oh, he's a really bad alcoholic. It's like, no, man. It's like, that's alcoholic. It's like, you're drinking. Get your drink on. Go for it. And so I'm unwrapping these things, and there's a bottle of Kahlua and a bottle of white wine. And I chug I think I drink the white wine first, but I drink the bottle of Kahlua straight and then the white wine, and that's sick, really sick, and I start, of course, I wind up at the porcelain altar, and there's some other insanity that went with that night where I had a shotgun pointed at my friend because he wouldn't give me what I wanted, and I pulled the trigger, and my dad was a responsible gun owner, and there was nothing in there, and I think Joe knew that because I thought it was funny. I used to get out the gun, and this is crazy, but I used to get out the gun, and I'd jump out at my friends over from school, and I'd be like, I'm going to kill you, and they'd just start crying, and like, oh my God, Dad, click, yeah. Yeah. The stupid thing was they kept coming back. I mean, that's awesome, It's like, watch this, dude. I'm going to make him cry, and but I hucked it at Joe. I was pissed, and I left, and they were worried about me, and I came back, though, and I threw up horribly that night, and that was good for about, I think about a year and a half I stayed sober on that one. That scared me badly, and, I wind up, though, in a year and a half, and one night I just, out of the blue, I relapse again. I'm just going to meetings. I'm just hanging out, doing nothing. I'm getting sponsors by writing their names on the sheet. I never talk to the guy. And they come up and say, hey, I see I'm your sponsor. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, actually, I just asked Glenn to be my sponsor. Sorry about that, and so I did that game for a while, the sponsorship naming thing, and I go into another treatment center this time, but this time I'm broken. And I really am broken. I've tried this thing. I've tried NA, CA, AA. I didn't even do cocaine, and I went to CA just to see what they had, and could have saved myself a lot of time because apparently they use the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous also in there. That kind of sucked. But, I did that, and I'm at this NA meeting this one night, and I'm sitting there, and it's right by my mom's house, and I did 1 through 5 in that last treatment center. I thought that would do it. I did 5 steps. I'm going to make it, and I walk up the hill by my mom's house, and I'm looking up at the sky to where God who I don't even believe in anymore is there. And I'm just like, you know what? And I look to Mrs. Walker's house to make sure she's not looking at me talking out loud to the sky. And I'm like, I'm done. If you got anything, you better send it quick because I'm done. Because I had that feeling that you guys know that you get. I stayed sober about a year and a half, and I can't do it anymore, man. I can't fight the fight every day. I'm just wearing down. And sometimes it lasted 3 months, sometimes it lasted a year, sometimes it lasted a night, and that's the thing. I can't plan on it. I don't know when it's going to happen, so I can't plan, when I feel like that, I better do this, or say this prayer. That doesn't even occur to me. It just doesn't even come into my thinking. It's just like, drink sounds good. Yeah. Drink. It's that simple. It's nothing magical, And I started to walk up the hill, and I said, oh, yeah, by the way, if you don't send anything now, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of watching the pain in my mom's eyes and watching her struggle and watching her son kill himself, And my mom used to sit there. It was the worst thing. I'd pull in. I used to steal her car all the time, and I'd steal the car, and I didn't even have a license, and I'd just steal it. From the time I was 13, I was driving, and I'd see her. She'd stand there the day at night. She'd catch me, and she'd be in a robe sitting there looking at me. And it's just like, that disappointment, just that look of disappointment again, again, Brendan, again. It's like, hey, Mom, and I just couldn't do any better than that. That was the best of my own ability. That's the best I did. And I said, if you don't send anything, I'm going to take as much alcohol and drugs as I can and blow my heart up, man, because I just can't do this game anymore. And as these stories go, I met a guy through a friend of mine. We were hanging out, insane together in AA, and he said, we're going to this guy's house, and he's reading through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he makes it interesting. And I'm like, really? I'm like, well, how does he do that? And he just looks at me, he's like, he reads it to us, and I'm like, okay, they used to tell us to read that to go to sleep in treatment, and it works, it's like, if you don't have somebody explaining that stuff to you and reading it to you, it's like, it's simple stuff, but for some reason, it's just, I don't get it, I'm bored, and I go to sleep, and so I go over to this guy's house, John, and he's like 7 feet tall, he's a big man, and he's loud, and I need loud, like I say, because my mind's loud, and I need something to get through that, and my ego's like the size of Texas, and you can see that face of hopelessness in me and that hole in me, and you hear people talk about that hole in you that the wind blows through, it's like I'm just hollow of a human being. I'm reduced to the shell of existence, only one might say for drinking. That's really my life's mission. I'm here to drink myself to death. Thanks, and John looks at me and he gives me the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's that first step, that identification, and that's why it's so important to have that, that primary purpose question answered. He looked at me dead in my eyes and said, why do you think you're an alcoholic? And I looked at him and I started, that night with Joe and the shotgun, or this, I stole the parents' van when I was 14, totaled it, wiped it down, ran home, and, faked a burglary to cover up for it, and, all these crazy stories, and John's just listened to me patiently, and he gave me patience. Those sponsors, they do that sometimes in the beginning, they'll be patient with you. It's always in the beginning until they're like, all right, had enough, shut up, and, I love that, but boy, when he just sat there and I just puked like I did at meetings. I used to just go to meetings and I'd take you hostage. You guys ever go to those meetings? They take you hostage for like a half an hour of this diatribe of how their car broke down and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, oh my God, but at least I'm sober. And you're like, great, and that's what I was doing. I was taking them hostage, no recovery whatsoever. It was just puke on you and leave, every night. Here comes Brendan, great. It was funny. I heard this statement lately, and I just laughed my butt off. My good buddy, Bud, this meeting I go to now, and old guy, he says, I've been around here long enough to finally understand that keep coming back wasn't a compliment, and it's like, isn't that a good one? It's like, yeah, man, I relate with that. It's like, keep coming back. I'm like, thanks, man, I will. It's like, they're like, please, God, do something with this guy, answer his prayer, kill him, and, so it's like, I'm dear Lord, God. But anyways, I'm at John's, and John's patient with me, and he listens to my story, and he goes, you know what, Brendan, I never did any of those things. I didn't do any of those things, and I'm an alcoholic. How many DUIs do you have? And I'm like, I don't have any. I've driven a lot drunk, but I never got caught. He's like, he's got 7. And I'm like, wow. He's driving problem. But, these other people telling all these different stories, and there's all these different mismatching behavior of these wild stories. But he gives me this great gift, because I thought that's what an alcoholic was all this craziness in my life, and of course, I must be an alcoholic. And of course, those were huge signs. Duh, drinking's not working for you. You might want to think about not. And, but what ended up happening is that, I'm realizing that my behavior patterns vary considerably between these people. But there's one thing we have in common. And he starts looking, and he opens up to that first, that title page of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And back then, they still had the circle and triangle in the book. And he shows me, unity, recovery, and service. And he says, you know what, Brendan, here's unity, and this is the body. And this is where you physically remove yourself from alcoholism. This is where the 12 traditions, we're in meetings, and they help us run those. We hang out there to remove yourself. And here's recovery, Brendan, with the 12 steps and being a sponsee, and going through that and doing exactly what it says page by page, the AA recovery program. And he points out in the book where it actually says the first portion of this volume, which describes the AA recovery program. And I was like, whoa. How long's that been in there? It's like, since 1939, and it's like, but I didn't know that was what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I've been in there for 4.5 years in and out, treatment centers, aftercares, all this stuff, and I had no idea what the program of recovery was in Alcoholics Anonymous. What I was doing was Brendan's a la carte. I was going to the AA buffet, and I'm like, I'll try a little bit of that, and see what happens, and hope this goes well, what ends up happening is I'm going through this guy, and he starts pointing this stuff out. And then he says, but here's the thing, Brendan. Once you take a drink whatsoever, it says in the doctor's opinion that, in this restless, irritable, and discontented, unless you can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once, by taking a few drinks which others take with impunity, without harm. And it explains that thing that I could not ever explain. Why, for the love of God, would I go drink again when I had a period of sobriety? That's the most insane thing I ever did. The most insane thing I ever did is, despite my experience, what was happening, over a period of sobriety, I made a decision to take a drink, And it wasn't like this thinking decision. It was like sometimes it just took me, But it was like, I drank again, which was, if you look at my life, it was completely insane. Nobody would do that. Nobody in their right mind would do that. And then the other thing is that once I did, I had that allergic reaction, which other people don't have. As an alcoholic, once I take that drink, I am off and running. I have little or no control whatsoever. And so I'm identifying, I'm like, oh my God. And what this is like this deflation of me, but this shimmer of hope where I realize this guy has some info. This guy understands. And it's that identification, that very important identification, that first step happened for the first time ever. And I went through the book with this guy, and I'd like to say in my first try through I was great, and I'm the golden AA child, but that's not how my story is. What happened is I died in my first 4-step. I got in some really sick behavior, almost drank, went back crying to my sponsor, and he's like, all right, are you done? I'm like, yes. And he put me back in another workshop. And all that is he just was too busy to meet with us individually. We had there was 10 guys. This guy, people were asking him, please help me, because he had something that we wanted. He was attractive, there was something about his message that just grabbed you, and you're like, this guy understands, but he's not living the way we're living. I need to know, what is this, And so we're meeting with this guy, and I go through, and I'm in the 3rd step, and I'm like, oh, God, you don't owe me anything. I know this, but I really need a sign that something's going to change here. And we're up at this my first treatment center up on the hill, and there was it used to be a seminary, so there was this big cathedral attached to it that we never went into. And I'm walking in, and I'm almost in tears because I'm like, if this doesn't work, if this does not work, I am a dead man. I now am armed with facts about myself where I understand I am a dead man. This is a life and death deal. There is no fun anymore. There's no ha-ha rat boy. It's like I'm going to die a bad death. And most of us, usually it's we die alone. We die alone. I can't tell you the number of people I've buried where it was a few days till we found them. I won't even get into those, but just tragic, horrible stories, and hearing those, it kills me, just to know that answer is there and they just can't quite get it, and so I walk in this cathedral and I'm on my knees and I'm going to do the 3rd step prayer, and I look up, and the whole entire cathedral ceiling is gigantic. They're enormous. This thing is like as wide as this, and it's just this big curved ceiling, and we're walking up this huge Gothic thing, and it's like circle and triangle all along the roof, these huge circle and triangles all along the roof, and the symbol of, that symbol of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm just like, I just come to tears. I'm like, oh, thank you. He didn't owe that to me or anything, and I know that, that doesn't mean that you need to have that happen to stay sober, but I'm telling you, at that moment, he showed me kindness. I needed that. And I had this, I said this prayer because I was afraid since I died in my first one, I wouldn't have those resentments again, or they would be reduced, and I wouldn't have a big enough inventory to be sufficient. So I went home and I made this prayer, and I did my 3rd step again, and I said, God, please let me have enough resentments here, and I'm afraid of that. And if you're new or you haven't done your inventory, do not ever say that prayer, ever. I just want you to know that. Bad idea. I puked out on that paper, and I kept paper after paper after paper after paper because I'm largely self-absorbed. And that's all that is. I am largely self-absorbed. And I write this inventory, 264 different people, about 3 resentment each. You can do the math. I'm not. And then I get to my fear inventory and my sex inventory. And on the inventory, he starts to show me in there a miracle of this deal. And it says, it doesn't say, Brendan, we're going to look at your part and their part. It says we're going to, and I did this list, and I did the resentment in the 3rd column, and I go over to it, and he says, we set them aside entirely. They don't even have a part. I don't care. Dad, 99.9% at fault sometimes. Not interested. We're interested in you. Because if I'm waiting for my dad to change, good luck. I'm going to be waiting a long time. If I'm waiting for you to change because I got a resentment against you and you need to treat me better, Good luck, man. You ever try to get an alcoholic to do anything? I mean, good luck, And so I'm starting to look at this inventory, and I'm starting to see the truth. And I'll sum it up with this, my inventory. There's this one that I like to tell because it kind of sums up the whole thing. And I'm reading them this resentment, and I'm like, yeah, this is a good one. They really do this to me, and there's no part, not part, but, I'm looking at my inventory, and I don't see anything there. And, I'm reading this thing about people when I'm walking down the road, and they're looking at me, they glare at me, those people like punking you, and you're like, yeah, what's up? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? How these cars going by, like, yeah, I see you, uh-huh. Oh, yeah, you're tough. Yeah, come on back, come on. And, it's like, let's play. And, I look at that, and my sponsor's like, yeah, Brendan, why do they, it said people who stare at you with those effed up attitudes is what I wrote, word for word. And he's like, what? What is this one, And he's just giving me this strange look, and poor John, man. Gosh, what a saint, to listen to that crap. And he just looks at me and said, how do you know they're staring? And I'm like, because, I started going my thing again. I'm all excited because I'm justified, I'm justified anger, And then he goes, Brendan, how do you know that they are staring at you? And finally, I'm about to go in it again. I'm looking at him thinking, he wants me to say something. I don't get it. And all of a sudden it dawns on me. I'm like, oh, I'm staring at them. And he's like, yeah. You can't know somebody's staring unless you are staring. It's physically impossible. It's like, I know you're staring at me. It just doesn't work. It's like, it just can't happen. It's physically impossible. And the light comes on. I'm like, oh my God, my entire inventory is like this. Everybody I hate and everybody I resent, it has nothing to do with them. It's my delusional and distorted thinking. My whole life. Everything, and I'm just amazed. And it's like, everyone else is like, they can see it clear as day, but I'm amazed. It's like this spiritual awakening for Brendan. It's like, oh my God, I'm at fault. I love that one, and it's a crushing blow, but you know what? It releases you from that ego, that thing. And I literally walked away there like I had this freedom, this weight off my shoulders. And I got busy, and I'm going to talk about that because I got real busy. I awakened to this deal, and I went home and I did the hour, and I looked at my 6 and 7 and the things that we found objectionable, and it came down, reduced down to a couple things. And I looked at that fear list again, the fears that I had on self-reliance versus God-reliance, what God would have for me. And I suggest you do that if you ever get an inventory. And then the sex inventory. Honestly, I was the type of drinker that I didn't want to be bothered. I just wanted to drink. Really, that was my story. It was like, yeah, you're cute, but, I liking my whiskey, And, it was short. I just didn't care. I was like, yeah, that's nice, And, so, I went through that, but I found out that every single relationship I had there was completely selfish. I hadn't had one relationship. And there was some I thought, oh, I was so good to her. Oh, my God. And, I saw what I was really doing, and it was some ugly behavior. And I'm just going to share in a general way. I'm not going to get into specifics. That belongs in the 5th step. But, what ended up happening is that I saw the truth in these things. And I wrote out an ideals list of my own conduct and what I wanted to grow towards. And I asked God to guide me and give me the willingness to grow towards that. And it didn't say that I was going to describe my ideal woman. I see some people, some guys I've sponsored, they do that. And I'm like, dude, that's not what I said. I said, the ideal of you, what you see in yourself, here. That I would be kind and considerate, those kind of things, Not that she would be blonde, 6 feet tall, no, that's not what I'm doing. And they come with me, I'm like, no, that's not what it says. So I'm starting to do this with every area of my life, my ideal, as far as what would God's vision of my life be. And for the first time in my life, I'm actually starting to be happy when I wake up. And I'm not waking up like this. And I'm not going into prayer. And if you're as disturbed as I was when I walked in here, I used to not be able to pray. I used to go into this prayer, and I'd try to pray. And that's the worst thing, that moment of silence before the prayer. Let's pause for a moment of silence to reflect on the reasons why we're here. And I'd just be like, silence, not good, And, we do the prayer, and it was thank God, And, what ends up happening, though, I get serious about this deal, and I get into my amends. And, man, I'll tell you what a miracle that was. I had a lot, on that resentment, so I had a lot of amends to do. But a lot of them were fancied, You know, I had a lot of resentments. You guys ever have that where you think, you know, these things were actually going on and it was just all in your head? You know, this whole crazy game. You know, I was like best friends and really super nice to these people, but inside I was just like, I want to take a pair of scissors and just jab it in your throat, you know? And, you know, and so I'd write that stuff down, you know, and they'd be like, wow, you know? And, you know, but I didn't owe them an amends because, you know what? I never caused harm. I never caused direct harm. I pretended with those people. Oh, hi, good to see you. You know? And what ended up happening, though, I go back and I start to pay the money back. Not my money, their money. I took it from them. I made amends to my father. And he told me as he hung up the phone with the detective that I was no longer on the persons of interest list. And I looked at him and I said, I didn't know they had one. And he responded, neither did I. And, you know, at that moment, I realized some of the harm. And it's funny, I'm going to make amends to my dad, and I see the harm right there live of what I've done to his reputation in town, what I've done to my family. I'm starting to see some of the damage and wreckage. Because it's not just, that's the biggest lie of all. Oh, I don't harm anybody. I'm just hurting myself. Oh, please. You know, that's the most another self-absorbed thought. I'm creating havoc everywhere I look, everywhere. So I make amends to these guys that I beat up. That one guy that I'm telling you about, Steve. And he tells me that he's actually trying to get sober himself now. And he actually is willing enough to meet with me. He tells me about he's got this new Bondo glue thing for his teeth that I knocked out so he can eat an apple now for the first time. And he's all excited about it. He's like, yeah, it's great. I got this new stuff from Japan. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm such a jerk, you know? And so I'm looking at him like, man, I am so sorry, Steve. But more than that, you know, I go through my amends and how can I make the books balance here? And it's about listening to them and them telling you how I can make it right. And he tells me, and you know what's funny is this happened to me more than once on these. He said, look, you know, I hear what you're saying about this, and would you do me a favor? Would you tell me about that inventory stuff, where this came from and this stuff? And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm here because I caused harm to this guy. I'm making amends, and he wants me to sponsor him and take him through the book. And I'm just like, whoa, you know, like God's got much, you know, I'm thinking I'm just going to make this amends and thanks, see ya, I'm really, really sorry, what can I do, you know, and thinking, well, not much I can do. I can't, you know, put in new ones, you know, and I do that, you know, we start a workshop, you know, and I'm sponsoring several guys. Another one, same thing happened. He said, my sister's dying of heroin addiction and drinking, and I knew her, Shelley, and I'm sitting there and I'm crying with this guy at his office, his bookstore thing, and I apologized to him the humiliation I made him have in school and how he got picked on every day after that, you know, every day after that fight that I had with him, he was picked on, you know, and I got to hear about that. He let me know. You know, and I had to sit there and listen, you know, because I needed to let him get free. And that's what I started to see, is I started to see the people that I caused harm to. When I made amends, they were getting free. The amends wasn't about me and me getting free so much. I started to go on the motive of I needed to set them free and allow them that opportunity. And isn't that funny how this thing goes, this unselfishness of this program? I set them free, and in so doing, I become free. You know, this thing is on its head, you know. But it works, you know. And I go through this, and I get done, and I'm sponsoring guys now, and I'm complaining. Well, actually, I'm complaining I'm not sponsoring anyone. I'm about a year and a half sober, and no one's asking me. And this guy, Bill, comes up. This one night I didn't even talk in a meeting, and we start talking about the big book, wants to come over. And I think, you know, I was trying to think about it the other day, but I think he asked me if he could bring one guy over, his friend or something. He called me. And so my first guy, I'm all excited, and I open the door when he shows up, and there's 8 guys. And I'm like, again, don't complain. Don't say, I'm afraid I won't have too many resentments. Don't say, I don't think I'll have enough sponsees. God answers those, man. And he just flooded me. And I got busy because I'm the type of alcoholic that if I don't have something going on, something's going on. You know, like, you know what I mean? So it's not to be so busy that you know, there's a balance. You know, it's not just stay busy, 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 busy so I don't drink. Not that. It's that I need this thing. I need to be tapped in, plugged in to Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to be plugged in with my brothers and sisters and everybody in this deal, because if I don't, that alcoholic mind starts to work. You know, it will, you know, it hasn't happened in years. I have not had the thought of drink. I mean, I really haven't, you know, and that's not everyone's experience. You know, some people, this thing struggles for a while, you know, but my experience is that I have been relieved of the obsession of alcoholism. That mind, that craziness, that total insanity is gone. It has left me completely. I don't have the conversations with myself walking down the street anymore. If you guys had those, I don't know, I'm sure Pete can relate, but, walking down the street and talking to myself and then realizing people are looking at me and thinking, oh my God, and then laughing out loud because you're realizing they can see you, and then you're realizing you're laughing out loud, and now you can look crazier. That's a good one. So, that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm getting not only able to stay sober and awakened in this thing, but the craziness in my mind is calming down. And I get involved, and I start going to intergroup, and I'm 21 years old. I'm just the young kid on the block, and I'm just showing up for duty. I'm just showing up for the group. And they need board elections, so they ask for volunteers. And like, hey, Brendan, we need one more. Sure, why not? I didn't even want it. I didn't care. And God put me to work. I suddenly was on the board, and I'm like, what the hell just happened? I just showed up for intergroup, and so then we need a director of the board, and they're like, well, how about Brendan? And I'm like, whatever, and so I'm 21 years old, this little punk kid, and I'm running the intergroup office, and it's not me, it's God. God's running that office. God's demonstrating through me what he can do, and we're doing this deal, and I'm getting involved in all this service work, and I'm staying busy. I get that home group, I have a service position. I meet with my sponsor, and you know what? My sponsor, by the way, I used to take a couple buses to his house because I didn't have a car or a license. And I had a license, I wasn't using it. I think I had a license then. But anyway, so I was on the bus, and I walked a couple miles to his house. So I don't ask my guys to do anything I didn't do. But when I hear them complain about, I don't know, as I take a bus, it's like, see ya, are you willing? Are you really willing? If you really wanted a drink or a drug, how far would you go? Would you take a bus? Probably, And I've been really busy in this thing. We started Northwest Fellowship of the Spirit conference up in Washington. And, I can't say enough about this and my heroes, and I've been put in places around this country where I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like, are you serious? You really want me to go talk to those guys in Utah? Okay. Here I am, whatever, but, God takes me to places, and I don't go there. I go to jail. I get drunk on my best, and I cause wreckage everywhere I go, and I hurt my mom terribly. And I'll have you say that my mom's one of my best friends today. My mom doesn't hang up the probation appointment, slips on the wall anymore. And I went back to school, and I became a nerd. She started putting on Dean's Honor Roll list slips up on the wall, and it was like, oh my God, there's my mom smiling and putting these little nerdy things up, smiley face, and like, so proud of you, and oh my God, I love it, and a little 5-foot Irish woman, and just cute, love her to death. And, I think, again, I never think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm going to get into UW, the university, and I apply. And my sponsor's like, oh yeah, I might as well not apply then, Brendan, but I apply. And I get this full, this scholarship, and I get in, and I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? And I go into pre-med, and I graduate with, a degree in English creative writing and cell and molecular biology. And, I did really well, and I'm a dork, I'm the guy throwing knives and fighting people and drinking, I don't do that stuff, It's like God just took over my life and just went, all right, here you go, and you know what, I'm not a doctor today, just make that clear, I actually own my own insurance agency, and that's a crazy story in itself. They literally handed me a book of business for free. I was trying to figure out, well, do I really want to go into that? And I came to the conclusion in prayer that, I met a woman who I love deeply, and, Stacy, and she and I were getting serious, and family was what was most important, what came up in my prayer. 6 months later, we pause, sometimes for 6 months, really. And the decision came, and I applied at all these biotech, pharmaceutical, all this stuff, and Allstate called me one day and said, we got a unique situation, and, I'm used to these calls by now. I got a unique situation. I'm like, oh, where am I going now, God? And, he has fun with me. I swear to God, it's like he's just having fun with me, and I'm along for the ride, and say we have a book of business we want to give you, and if you'll just take it over. And, that doesn't happen, it would have cost me like $80,000 to buy it, and they just gave it to me, and so now I took that over, and we're engaged to be married next year, August 8th, and My brother Kevin's sober. He's 5 years sober, younger than I am. My brother Brian's 5 years older than me in sobriety. My mom's in Al-Anon. My brother Sean, we're still wondering. And my brother James seems to be normal in every respect. In fact, he was a National Merit Scholarship finalist, the top 1% GPAs in the country. Unreal. Like, where did you come from? You get one of those in your family, you're like, who are you, dude? Like, Mom, was there any night you were drinking and you stayed somewhere else, and there wasn't, and my brothers, what's funny? I've had them call me for advice. Oh, I mean, I'm 4 out of 5, and they're calling me, hey, can I ask you a question? I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm available for that, I'm available for that. And that's not because I talk a certain way, it's because I've demonstrated in my life. God has demonstrated through me this life of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they've seen how I am. And it says that in there. It says, much more powerful demonstration lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. And I'll tell you, you can talk the talk in here, but when you hit the street, I want to see what you do. How do you treat people? What do you do? How are you in business? Your personal relationships? It's like, and you know what? My personal relationships were not so easy at first. It took my mom about 2 years to stop, the behavior she was towards me. And that's not because of her fault. It's because I trained her that way. My behavior trained her to be that way, and she stopped. After 2 years, she realized I had changed, and she changed. But I had to learn patience, and not react. I had to go within. And, this, man. I mean, my mom, the damage and things I used to say to her, we went back and we repainted that house. We replaced every door. I had 16 holes on one side of my door from fist marks, and that was just my door. I mean, there was holes all over our house. My brother threw a vacuum through the wall because it bunked him in the head on the steps. I mean, it was insane. Our house has reflected now physically what's happened inside, and it's never happened by dressing nice, getting a job, speaking a lingo. It's an inside job. This thing had to change from the inside out. Because I've tried all the outside stuff. I've tried the treatment. I've tried the counseling. I've tried you. And I hate to say it, you're just as powerless as I am. And if I want you to save me, you can't. You can't. We can hang here together and try to help each other. And there is a power there amongst us. The fellowship, it is something that's great, But I need something greater than that. And that idea of God has grown from that simple idea, bigger and bigger each day, to now where, I have such a belief and a faith. And I understand that now, And who knows if I'll stay sober to the day I die? I don't know. I hope so. Sometimes I get a little cocky and I think, yeah, I'm going to stay sober forever, and getting tripped on that. But I can't count on that. I have to be active in here. I have to be. If I don't, I wither and die. It's like a plant. You have to water it and feed it. If you don't, it will wither and die. It's the same thing with my spiritual life. It says the maintenance and growth of our spiritual condition, and that's what I have today. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak and share my story with you. And I don't know if who I'm here for. Actually, I think I'm here for Aaron, actually, in the back. That's who I think I'm here for, And if anyone else here got anything out of that, good, But again, it's not me. This is God demonstrating through me what he can do. So if you want to thank somebody, thank God. Thanks.